Hello, saver. Whether you're saving for that trip to the tropics or saving for an emergency, now is the time to take advantage of Wells Fargo's savings options. Wells Fargo offers savings accounts that can help you save towards your goals. So, what are you saving for? Visit a Wells Fargo branch or wellsfargo.com/save to open a savings account today.
Wells Fargo Bank, N.A., member FDIC.
You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers, about hikers, for everybody.
I'm wondering if you'd go wandering with me through the wilderness and woods to where the winds are blowing free, through the darkness of the night, heading toward the morning.
Welcome to the Jester Section Hiker Podcast, with the spotlight on section hikers.
And I'll spread the word, and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come. And we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river and through the woods.
All right, you guys, welcome back to the Jester Section Hiker Podcast. I am glad you have found your way over to the show, whether you are listening to the audio version or you are live with us on YouTube. You have found your way to the premiere podcast with the spotlight on section hikers. And I am your host, Julie Jester Gayheart. And you guys, before I even introduce my guest today, I owe him a big apology. And I'm very thankful that he agreed to come back on with me. You guys, yesterday, about 3:30, before we were supposed to record at 4, I called Kelly in a panic. And I said, Kelly, I am just deadly ill. There is no way I am going to be able to go live. And Kelly was like, I understand, whatever you need to do. So then, I hung up with Kelly and spent some time in the restroom, and then the rest of the afternoon in the bed. And I don't know, woke up this morning. I feel great. Kelly is back with us, and I will bring him on in a second. So for those of you that were anticipating the show going live yesterday, I do apologize. That is just one of the things of going live. There's all kinds of things that can happen. You could have technical difficulties. You could have the guest not show up. I've had that. You could have the guest show up and there be no sound. I've had that. And then yesterday, it was actually me. And I was like, oh my God, I was going to try to work my way through it, but there was just absolutely no way. So Kelly, I truly appreciate it. I know you're hearing this before I introduce you. But how I was going to start off the show yesterday is how I will start it off today. And that is with a huge thank you. So over the past, since January, since I came back with season 4 of the podcast, you guys, the listeners, I have received so many amazing emails of thank yous, of encouragement. And I just want to read a couple of those for you. Some messages I got on Instagram. One of the messages I got was from Lisa Matthews. She says that she is so happy to listen and that I am back for her Saturday adventures. So Lisa, I'm glad I'm back for you as well. Another message that I received from Retired, Not Expired says he enjoys listening to the podcast at the gym on Saturdays. So Retired, Not Expired, thank you for that. And thank you for taking us to the gym. And this message is from Brad, and Brad actually put this on my Facebook. He says, I'm so happy to have your podcast back. Listening is my Saturday morning routine that gets my weekend started off right. I really appreciate all the hard work you do to produce these and your positive attitude that really comes across in your voice. I don't know how positive sometimes, Brad, but I appreciate that. I just wanted you to know you're appreciated and you inspire me to get out in the beautiful outdoors. I hope you have a fantastic summer and great success with your production company adventure. You are inspiring. Thank you. No, thank you, Brad. I truly appreciate it. I got an email from, I believe her trail name is Swishiny. Swishity says, "Hey, Jester, listening to your show from Saturday. I love the renewed passion for the AT. Both you and your guest have great energy. And I'm pretty sure that Swishiny is referring to my recent episode with Sean, where we were fired up for the Appalachian Trail. And I think Sean is in the chat right now. So Sean, that is a compliment to you as well." And then I got another email from a listener. Her name is Susie. She says that she just wanted to drop a quick note and say thank you for reaching out to such a diverse audience. And what she means by that is slow hikers, fast hikers, lashers, or just a few milers. Your joy and enthusiasm are contagious. Susie, I really appreciate that. If you're listening, keep in contact with me. I know you and I have been emailing back and forth. And then I got another recent email. I'm telling you guys, the listeners, have been reaching out to me, and I truly appreciate it. It really, really gives me justification why I keep doing this and why we keep having a show specifically for section hikers. I got an email from a gentleman named Dennis, and he asked me several questions about section hiking in the White Mountains on the Appalachian Trail. And he actually lives on the MST up in the Raleigh area and was asking me questions about that. And all of these emails have really fueled me to keep going, have really fired up my passion again for what I truly love, and that is the Appalachian Trail. So keep the emails coming. I truly appreciate it. They mean a lot to me. If you send me something, I'll try to read it out on the air. And one of the things that all of these emails and messages on Instagram, it's really fueled me to bring to the show a series that I've been wanting to do for a long time. And it's a series about section hiking, particular areas of the Appalachian Trail. So I sat down over the last week and I put a schedule together, and I know you guys are going to think I'm nuts. I put a schedule together of live recordings from now until June, and I'm going to start by series of section hiking the Appalachian Trail, and that starts on March 26th. And the episodes are going to go as follows. So on March 26th, I'm going to talk about all things section hiking Georgia. Then the next episode will be section hiking the Smokies, section hiking the Shenandoahs after that, section hiking Connecticut, section hiking in the Whites. And then we're going to end the series, which will lead us into the summer, of section hiking the 100-mile wilderness. And I'm really, really excited about these episodes. They're going to be solo episodes, but it's going to be all about logistics just in those particular areas. So when we kick it off with Georgia, we're going to talk about everything from the hostels, where to park your car, where to get resupply, and everything that encompasses getting off the trail, where to go eat, where to hang out for the day if you want to take a 0 day, all that stuff. We're going to take a look back on how I did things and how things have changed and what's available now. So thank you all. You all have fueled me to do this. I really appreciate everything. And I will say today's guest also has fueled me because he has kept in contact with me. You guys know Kelly. He was one of Jester's class of 2022 section hikers. I believe his episode came out in early June, and he is representing Canada and the Great Divide Trail. So let's go ahead and bring back Mr. Kelly McDonald. Kelly, welcome back to the show.
Glad to be back. I know when we chatted last year, the promise was to come back and give you a bit of a debrief on how the summer went, and congratulations on 150
I know, that's
episodes.
insane. I think the audio is a little bit off, but I think it'll catch up as we go, Kelly. So for those of you that are listening in the chat, let us know if the audio's off. If not, we can pause and make some things happen. But the first thing I wanted to do with you, Kelly, because I consider you one of my Durston gear geeks, and you guys could already tell if you're watching this. Kelly has some Durston gear in the background. So Kelly, tell us what you got going on back there.
Yeah, I've got my Durston X-Mid 1 P10. So it's one of the older ones. It's one of the drops. I do have one of the new Pros on order. It hasn't quite arrived. I was one of the group that ordered mine with a ground sheet. So I know they've been a little bit of a delay on getting those shipped out versus the first batch. So I'm eagerly awaiting that. And then I've also got my my Kakwa 40 backpack, Durston Kakwa 40 that I started using last summer. I had the DD40 before that, but decided to make the upgrade, and I've been really
so
happy
listen,
with it. So
you guys will just have to ignore if our lips are off or something like that, but the audio seems to be okay. And I know Skunk Ape says we're echoing, but you know what? I don't know what to do at this point, so we're going to keep it moving. And Kelly, hopefully you'll move with me, and you'll see what I've brought up here. So all you Durston nerds out there, I actually purchased a pair of, what are these called? These are called the Flick poles. Is that what they're called? The Z-Flick poles.
Z-Flick, I think.
That will actually go with my Durston tent that I have right here, because I just want to show off this beauty that I've actually used a couple times. I know I can't get it all there right. So this is the Durston X-Mid 1. It's actually the Sil Poly tent. Is that the one you have? I can't remember.
Yeah. I think mine is a slightly older version, so it's a little bit smaller than the one
I also
you have.
have another prize that I just got. I actually haven't even taken this out of the bag. Cause I just bought, anytime anything pops up Durston, I just buy it. I don't know what the deal is. So this is a ground cloth, a beautiful black ground cloth for my Durston, X-Mid 1 person. So I've got the X-Mid, I've got the ground cloth, and I've also got the Flick poles. So I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go this spring. And I know Skunk Ape, he's already going to have something to say in the chat about a hammock. But I did unveil this. I do not use these stakes that come with the tent. I actually use, the MSR groundhogs. And I think you said you switched out your tent stuff too.
Yeah, I used the mini hogs as well. I actually was maybe over eager when I first got the tent. And I went out in the spring, and the ground was a bit frozen when I was trying to hammer the titanium V stakes that come with it, and I bent them up pretty badly. So I've switched.
And you're
to
pretty active
the
on
hogs.
the Durston Gearhead Facebook page, right?
Yeah, I like to be active there, and as well on the Great Divide Trail.
Excellent.
Association
Okay,
page.
so remind everybody, you came on in June, and you were going to go out for a section hike on the Great Divide Trail this past summer. So take us back, remind everybody what you're going to do, and then kind of walk us through. Did you accomplish that? I know some of the pictures you had on your Facebook were absolutely beautiful. I mean, the Great Divide Trail has got it going on. So talk us through kind of what you decided to do and what you ended up doing.
Yeah, so my focus was to hike most of what's called Section C on the Great Divide Trail, and that's through kind of the core areas of Banff National Park. That's probably where most people will know that section from. It starts off in a place called Peter Lougheed Provincial Park, and then the first day you hike into a little campground called Turbine, which is a kind of up in the Alpine, not quite a tree line, but I've been there before. It's a nice little remote campground. There's a great canyon there with waterfalls to kind of keep you entertained. And for the fun of it, I just decided I hiked up there and then just kind of took a 0 day to just enjoy, relax, and kind of get away from the day-to-day grind of work and all that. So it was a nice, relaxing day. It was kind of interesting as we had a helicopter come into the campground during that day. It turns out, thankfully, no one was
going to say that's
kind of
cool. It could be scary at the same time.
Yeah. They were just coming in to do some inspections. The campground had actually only opened a couple days before I arrived. Last year, we had a really high snow year up in the Canadian Rockies, and the spring was a little bit late. So lot of trips that people had planned for kind of early mid-July just didn't happen. There was still too much snow up in the high passes. But yeah, they were coming in just to inspect the campground, make sure everything had survived the winter. So got a chance to talk to the pilot, and it's amazing how active they are between, they do a little bit of tourism flights for some of the areas, but primarily they support search and rescue all throughout the Canadian Rockies, as well as doing logistics for all the parks agencies if they're doing trail maintenance or campground maintenance. But it was kind of fun, a little unexpected kind of event. When in the backcountry you don't expect to have a helicopter land in.
Yeah, no.
I actually did on a second trip that I did later in the summer, not on the on a different section of the Great Divide Trail. We actually had another helicopter come in. That actually was for a rescue.
Wow.
Thankfully, the person wasn't. They just injured their ankle. They had a small piece of rock fall on their ankle. So thankfully, it was nothing serious. But it was. I kind of say it was my summer of helicopters that I got to see a lot of helicopters come in. But
interesting. So on the Great Divide Trail, who's coming out on the helicopter? Is it like a park team? Is it search and rescue? Like who is coming out?
Yeah, so there's a couple of agencies up and down the trail, depending on where you're at a particular part in time. In the area that I was for the first time was actually it's called Kananaskis Public Safety. So they're the search and rescue, but they work with a company called Alpine Helicopters, which provides a lot of the helicopter and logistic support up and down the mountains. Same with for the second helicopter encounter where I was in Yoho National Park. So that's Parks Canada. So it's a different jurisdiction, but they also work with the same helicopter company to bring people in and out if necessary.
Excellent. Oh, I see some, what are those maps behind you? Talk about what you've laid out everything so beautifully behind you. It's a perfect background. So I'm going to go through each thing. So I see some amazing maps. What are those behind you? Sure.
Yeah, I've got, so there's a local company that does a lot of maps in and around like Jasper and Banff. They're called GemTrek. And I mean, I've been using their series of maps for probably a good 20, 25 years. And yeah, they're just great maps of the area. Banff, Jasper, Kootenays, Kananaskis, Waterton. They have a whole kind of series. I also have a couple of the National Geographic maps for some of the areas, but these are the ones that have, I guess, all the local knowledge, if you will, baked into them. And they're the ones I usually carry with me when I'm on the trail. I always have my
and those
my
other two.
maps.
Is that a book? Do you actually have a particular book?
Yeah, I've got a couple books for the Great Divide Trail. So one, this is the kind of the Bible, if you will. This is
that's the book I want.
Trail
yeah,
guide
that's considered the
Dustin
Bible
links.
of the trail. That's what I want.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is 5th edition. So Dustin Links put this. I guess he published it maybe about 20 years ago, the first edition when he did the trail. And this was, I think, really instrumental in kind of getting excitement and getting people back to hiking the trail. I mean, the trail originally was conceived in the mid 1960s, and there was a bunch of work that was done with Parks Canada and kind of an idea of how do they connect some of the parks together with a long trail. And there was an initial flurry of work, and then it unfortunately kind of faded away. Some of the political support kind of ebbed and flowed. And throughout most of the 80s and even into the 90s, it was maybe a couple people here or there might try to link the trail together. There wasn't really an organization really supporting the trail and keeping it together. And then Dustin hiked the trail, wrote his book, and then from there it just kind of started getting interest because it had the route and trail descriptions and where to camp and where to resupply. And with that, it kind of reconstituted the Great Divide Trail Association to start building the trail again, maintaining the trail, and doing a lot of work just to improve parts of it that are kind of outside of some of the parks where you don't get a lot of TLC. But we're now also starting to work as an association with some of the parks and various other land managers up and down the trail to improve it, clear it, make it more enjoyable for people to hike. And that's a second book that one of the Jenny Fiek, who's with the Great Divide Trail Association, compiled this probably about 2 or 3 years ago. which is just a kind of a history of where the trail came from and all kind of the early folks that got together to kind of put it together and do some of the original trail work and building some of the original trail as they got started in the late 70s and early 80s.
So remind us, how many miles total is the Great Divide Trail?
So it's about 650 miles.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It starts at the border with Glacier National Park on Montana. So it starts in Waterton Lakes, which is just on the Canadian side of the border. And then it heads, through Waterton Lakes, through a bunch of Crown land, what we call the Castle, and then Livingston, which is another area, and then into Kananaskis, Banff, Kootenay, Yoho, Jasper, and then it goes maybe about 100 miles north of Jasper into a place called Kakwa Lake. It's fairly remote, but a lot of people, it gives you kind of a little bit of everything from pretty remote and rustic and rugged trail that maybe only sees 50 to 100 people every year hike, all to some of the more most popular backcountry trails in the national park system. So you get a little bit of everything, and it's a bit of a choose your own adventure. In some ways, it's closer to the Continental Divide Trail in that aspect. But it's a great adventure. I've now hiked about a quarter of it through various section hikes, and hoping to chip off about another probably about 7 or 8% this summer.
I like the percentages. So have you done more of the southern part of the trail, or have you just skipped around, or do you have a strategy?
So I don't really have a strategy. I'd say I've done a big chunk in the middle and a big chunk in the beginning or down in the south. So I've done a big chunk of it through Waterton Lakes National Park. I did that in 2021. And then I've got a plan this summer to kind of finish Section A of the trail. I did a little bit of trail work as a volunteer last summer on Section B, and that was a lot of fun. It was kind of my first experience with a trail building crew, and that was, like I said, it was a lot of fun. You get together with a lot of other people that are really passionate about the outdoors and about the trail, and we had people come from. We had a few people down from the States even come up. We had some people out from Eastern Canada that were using, they had hiked the trail the year before and decided to come out and give back. We had some people that have been volunteering with the trail for 7, 8, 9 years, and it's great. Everyone's kind of sitting around the campfire, telling tales and sharing stories about the their experiences, not only on the trail but backpacking and in the outdoors in general. And then you spend the day. We kind of hike in a little bit, and we'll have our different tools, our picks and Pulaskis and hose and campers and everything. And it's amazing.
Listen, Kelly, you're getting excited about that stuff. You're like lighting up, like Pulaskis and hammers and whatever. It's awesome.
It was a lot of. I mean, it's kind of you're actually creating brand new trail, right? And it's amazing how much trail 12 people or so, I think was the size of our group, can build in a day, right? And it was, so it'll be something I'll be going back. I've got signed up for another trail maintenance trip this summer.
So was that through the Great Divide Association, or was that through another group?
Through the Great Divide Trail Association. So that was something, that was the first time I had gotten involved actually as a trail volunteer last summer. Yeah, and I'll do it again this summer. There's a bridge building trip that I'm going to be trying to join. So that should be a lot of fun. And
Kelly's recruiting. So any of you out there that are up in that area, I guess you have to be up in that area. So you said you went out in Section B. So the trail's 600 miles long. How many sections?
So it goes up to Section G.
Okay.
So I guess that's 6, 7 sections.
Yeah, if we were good at the alphabet, we'd be able to figure that out. But
and then like I said last summer, I hiked most of Section C. There's a little tiny bit in the middle that I had to get off trail just for a day to pick up a few things, and that's actually where I swapped out my DD40 for my Kakwa 40. So there's about an 8-mile section in the middle that I have to go back this summer and just finish off in a place called Assiniboine. But the trip that last summer, the weather was perfect. There was no rain. It was blue sky days. The wildflowers were out, and
you're making me jealous right now.
Yeah, it was some incredible views, because there's part of the in probably about the middle of Section C. There's a place called Sunshine Meadows, and it's probably one of the largest kind of alpine meadows. Probably stretches about 25, 30 miles, and you can pretty much hike 2 or 3 days just through these alpine meadows above tree line, and the wildflowers are out, and it's views in just about every direction. So that was a really great experience. I've seen parts of that, but to spend a couple days really up there and enjoying the views, and that was really, really good. And then I had when we talked last year, just because of the permitting situation, there was another section called Rockwall that I wasn't able to do until end of September, beginning of October. And that's, up in the mountains, that's always a bit of a roll of the dice. You never know what late September, early October is going to be. You could be in the middle of a blizzard under 2 feet of snow, or you could have, glorious days where it's, probably in the, probably the 50s, 60 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's what I had when I went on the trail. It was, the weather was great. We have in what they call kind of larch season. So there's a kind of a certain species of tree. So it looks like an evergreen. So it looks like a pine tree or fir tree, but the pines actually change color, just like a deciduous tree would. So, when I hiked the trail at the end of September, everything was golden. The trees had all changed color.
I was going to ask you, you sent me a picture that I'm going to use for the social media posting, and it's so golden. Like, you can see the tree. I'm like, this is the perfect picture, because you could just see this little path, but your eye is drawn to everything golden around it. Is that the area you sent me that picture from?
Yeah. It's called the Rockwall, and I've been meaning to do that trail for a couple of years. It seemed to be a little bit of my white whale to kind of, from Moby Dick, because the first year I booked it and got permits for it, I had a work conflict come up and I had to cancel. The second time I had it all booked and ready to go, there were wildfires in Kootenay National Park, so they had to close the trail. And then the third time I had a medical issue, so I wasn't able to complete the trail that summer. But finally, the fourth time last year, I was able to do it, and it was an incredible trip. I had a lot of fun on it.
So awesome. So the next 7 or 8% that you're going to tackle, what is that?
So
and I should say, what is it and when is it?
Yeah. So I'm going to, my plan is to just finish off that last little middle part of Section C that I missed, Assiniboine. So to do that. And then I plan to also go down to Section A and finish Section A off. So if all goes well, I'll have Section A and Section C all finished by this time next year. It's still a little bit in flux, because normally permits when Parks Canada kind of opens up their reservation for backcountry permits, they normally do that in the end of January. This year, because they're doing some system upgrades, they're not opening that up until end of March. So I don't have my permits yet. So this is my plan, and we'll see how things go at the end of March when they open up reservations. But that means, to any of the listeners, if you're thinking about, maybe this is the year that I'm going to hike the Great Divide Trail or sections of it, there's still time. If you want to do your research, I know usually the association puts together a couple of webinars each year just to talk about, planning and logistics and how to put that together. So those are just starting to come out, I think, throughout the month of March. But if it is something that you're interested in, you can definitely reach out to me or the Facebook group. And like I said, you still have time to get permits.
Which is great. Listen, we got a question here from Sean. Sure. Sean says, does this trail have many designated camping areas or shelters, or do you just stop and set up camp where you decide?
It depends on where you are on the trail. So there are, because it passes through so many different kinds of land, so there's there's national parks, there's provincial parks. There are some that are very popular areas. There are some that are very remote areas. So some of the parts of the trail you do have to reserve. There's designated campsites, and that's the only place that you're allowed to camp. And a lot of that is in Section C because that's in Banff National Park. Section E in Jasper also has a lot of permits that you need to arrange in Jasper. But there are other whole parts of the trail where it's random dispersed camping. There are some rustic campgrounds that might have an outhouse or a picnic table to eat at. Others, it's like camp wherever you can find a nice flat spot on the side of the trail. So, like I said, it's a little bit of everything. It's choose your own adventure, and if you do the trail from start to finish, it'll be everything from popular backcountry trails all the way to places where you may not see anyone for 3 or 4 days.
So how much alpine is it? Are you up in alpine a lot? I just visualize this like just open hiking where every turn I'm seeing some absolutely beautiful. Are you in the green tunnel? Like describe like your typical day of hiking. I guess it would depend on where you're at.
Yeah, I mean the intent of the trail is to have it as close as possible to the Continental Divide. So that's normally in Canada. That's the border between Alberta, the province of Alberta, and the province of BC. So in a lot of places, you are going to be in the Alpine or relatively close to the Alpine. Sometimes that means it's a lot of up and down because you'll go down a valley where you'll be more trees, more forested, and then you'll climb up to the next pass, and you'll enjoy the Alpine for maybe a day or a couple of hours, and then you'll be back in the trees as you go down the next valley and up to the next pass. So there's every part of it. There's lots of views, and one of the things is as you go further north up the trail, because as you get further north, the weather gets a little bit more extreme. The winter is longer and the spring is shorter, or the summer is shorter. It means the tree line starts to come down as you get closer and closer to the northern ends of the trail. So you spend probably a lot more time, I'd say, in the Alpine as you kind of get closer to the northern part of the trail, just because there's the tree line's lower than it is in the south.
Yeah. Listen, I know you're going to think I'm nuts, but anybody that hikes is not going to think I'm nuts when I say this. I could literally smell the Alpine. Like I could just visualize coming up. I can smell it. I am just like chomping at the bit. If anybody can't tell, I'm chomping at the bit to go hiking, but I can smell the Alpine zone. So taking a walk adventures, he wants to know how the water sources are out on the Great Divide.
Yeah, water is generally pretty plentiful on the trail. I mean, it is there's a lot of creeks. There's a lot of snow melt from the glaciers. There are a few parts here and there where either you're on a ridge line for a little bit, where you may be a little bit fewer and far between water sources. That booklet that the Dustin links has a really good. Where there are places that you may need to be a little bit more concerned to. Is that the book you have?
Hold that book up so we see that.
Yeah, this one. He talks a lot about like different water sources, or if there are places where you may need to carry a little bit longer. But by the most part, maybe it's you might have a 10-mile stretch where you may have to carry water. I think there are one or two places on some of the alternates where it might be you may have to carry a day's worth of water just because you're on a ridge line for quite a while, but for the most part, there's plentiful water along the trail.
And I think the hammock hangers, which is my buddy Skunk Ape, I think he agrees with me. He can smell it too, the Alpine. So there you go. So I have a question. So you were saying last summer, the snow and everything, it was end of July, early August before the snow melt. So what is, so say, I'm coming from the States and I want to go up and I want to get a good section hike in and I want to start at the southern border. Is there an opportune time, a good window? Because you really don't want to plan something in the beginning of July and get caught, not be able to go. So what is that window?
I mean, I'd say usually the sweet spot is when a lot of the thru hikers who are planning to do the whole trail usually around the beginning of July. July 1st is a pretty popular day. It's it's also a holiday in Canada. It's Canada Day.
Canada Day. I summited Katahdin on Canada Day. So there you go. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's usually around when people start. Most years, that's a good time. Like you might encounter a little bit of snow here or there along the way. But it's given July 1st is usually a chance for most of the snow to melt out at high elevation, and you're generally going to have a good trip if you start in and around there. Last summer was just one of those summers where we got a lot of snow, and the spring was late, and so it hung around quite a bit longer than it usually does. But sometimes it is a little bit of a roll of the dice, and you have a lot of people watching. There's a couple of really good websites and apps that show you the snowpack, so people are watching. Okay, is it melting? How much? Are we above forecast? Are we below forecast?
Everybody's like, "Is it time to go? We're ready."
Yeah. and it's hard to really judge in advance because the way that it typically works is that the snowpack in the Canadian Rockies usually peaks in kind of early mid-May, and then it melts like crazy throughout the last part of May and through June. There's ski hills up here that are typically operating until late May. And so you can go skiing. But just, last year, because there was still so much snow, one of the ski hills was actually able to open on July 1st long weekend. Just they did it for a couple of days just to say that
is crazy to me.
You could come ski in July. But like I said, I think they've only maybe done that, maybe once or twice over the past 20 or 30 years. So last summer was pretty unusual for snowpack.
All right, we got my buddy Skunk Ape is on here, and he is not going to let an episode go without asking about a hammock. So, lots of trees for hammocks.
I know people.
Question mark.
Yeah, I know people who have hiked the Great Divide Trail using hammocks. You have to be careful in some of the national parks. They've got certain rules about the types of slings you can put on the trees so that you don't damage the trees. There are some places where you have to be a little bit more careful, particularly in the northern part of the trail where the tree line is lower, where you have to maybe a little bit more picky about trying to find trees that you can use to set up your hammock. But I know people who've done the trail using a hammock.
So listen, I know you're going out this summer. You're going to clip off another 7 or 8%. I know you're going to do another trail maintenance trip, but I have in my notes here that you did something, was it last summer? You did some trail surveying, which sounds really cool to me.
Yeah. So it was one of the sections of trail. What I offer to do is, one of the volunteer roles that I have with the Great Divide Trail Association is something called our advocacy group. So that's working with various land managers, some of the park groups, different associations up and down the trail. There's a lot of backcountry equestrian organizations that use parts of the trail. And so we had a section through what's called Height of the Rockies Provincial Park. And it's fairly remote. You can't actually get to that park by road. The only way you can get there is by hiking. And so what I volunteered to do is I said, hey, I'm going to hike. I have to hike a section of trail through that area anyway. So while I'm doing that, I'm going to do kind of a formal trail survey, fill out a bit of a report, make note of any washouts or blowdowns or anything that might be a hazard on the trail, and not only so that we can use that to provide information to hikers of the trail and what to expect, but we also report that back to the provincial parks organization so that they know what the trails are like. And then we actually started working with the provincial BC Parks in this case to put an agreement together so that we can actually do maintenance and take responsibility for that section of the trail and help keep it up as we kind of link everything together and improve the experience on the trail.
I love that. So it sounds like to me, you've gotten really ingrained, not only in the trail, which is your home country trail, but also the association. You're helping out. We got a comment from Hey, Justin. Justin says, that's awesome. Those surveys are so important for trail volunteers. I had no idea that they were that important, but that is awesome. I think more people, need to get involved in that.
Yeah, I mean, and it's amazing how many, no matter where you are, chances are, if you're near a trail of some kind, there's some sort of, either volunteer organization that's, invested in helping maintain the trail or advocate or protect for that trail. And, you can get involved in, if you want to do the heavy lifting of clearing blowdowns and, helping dig trail or reroute trail around washouts, you have all those options there. But if that's something that, maybe I'm not up for something that physically demanding, there's so many different ways you can help out, whether it's, just doing trail surveys, which is really go for a hike and just pay a little bit more attention and take a few notes as to what you see and what you experience on the trail. And then, of course, there's whether it's fundraising, whether it's working with the different land managers in the area, and there's lots of opportunities for everyone to give back to their local trail associations.
And if that's not enough, you're also involved in what is the Outdoor Council of Canada?
Yeah, so this is a group that I've been involved with for about the past 8 years, and it was an organization that actually started out of a tragedy. So I think it was 2000. I don't remember what it was, but it was about 15, 20 years ago. There was a school group that was doing some backcountry skiing in our Glacier National Park. So Canada has a Glacier National Park as well. Unfortunately, there was an avalanche and a number of kids were killed. And there was a real concern at the time around, would the pendulum kind of shift to the other extreme where, schools and other, youth groups, whether it be, scouts or, like NOLIS or other those organizations that take youth out into the outdoors, that basically there'd be a real kind of, okay, you're not going to be able to take kids into the outdoors because it's too dangerous. And the OCC kind of started off with, well, how can we at least create some educational programs for whether it's teachers, whether it's scout leaders, whether it's camp organizations, to say, well, how can you do a little bit more around, risk assessment, risk mitigation? How do you plan effectively? So there's a little bit of a structure and a little bit of a due diligence around, planning trips to take people out into the outdoors. And that's kind of where it got started, to kind of, make sure that there was, an educational component for what we call field leaders, or people that take groups into the outdoors, so that there was a standard that was kind of being established. Because at one end, there's, in Canada, we have the Canadian Association of Mountain Guides, and they have kind of similar sister and brother organizations all throughout the world, where, if you're doing, guided climbs, or you can actually become a, certified, trail leader or hiking leader or backcountry leader. And these are for people who are, going down the road of, they're going to be a professional guide. That's their profession. And there's a fairly kind of stringent process in training and learning to kind of, get the skills, get the certification, and kind of, practice your profession. And, the OCC is really kind of a little bit in the middle, right? So it's not necessarily for people who are going to become professional guides, but in the nature of their work or what they do, may take groups out into the outside. So there's a lot of work to kind of build that kind of educational framework and kind of roll that out to a number of different groups across the country. And then also just start helping advocate for the outdoor industry in general. There's a lot of different groups. And if you think in kind of organized sports, so if you think of football or soccer or hockey, there's fairly large organizations and national organizations that kind of advocate for that sport. Mm-hmm. And for some of the outdoor, if you think of like backpacking or kayaking or backcountry, horseback riding, there isn't really kind of a national organization that kind of supports that activity, because it's mostly just people going out on their own, right? It's not a team sport generally. So part of the OCC was also to kind of help kind of bring a little bit of an advocacy together to kind of speak for people who like to recreate in the outdoors, so that whether it's permitting systems or protections or insurance, if you're like a trail organization or a trail guide, to make sure that those things are in place, so that people continue to take more people into the outdoors and to do it safely, and everyone can have great experiences and really connect to nature.
Yeah, a lot of things, we don't think about, when we've planned our amazing adventure, there's other ways to, steer off from the amazing adventure and give back. And that's certainly another avenue. And it sounds like, I'm ready to sign up to come to Canada like right now. So, and it's certainly on my list to get up there and get on the Great Divide Trail. And Kelly, you are officially the show, Section Hiker Great Divide Trail correspondent. That's what I'm going to name you. So,
we'd be happy to have you on the trail. And if you are coming up here, let me know and we can.
I will definitely let you know, because I'm going to be like, help. So listen, say somebody wants to go up there and do a section. What's the best place for people to start doing their research? When they hit Google, go to the Great Divide Trail Association. Should they start there? Yeah, the Great Divide Trail Association is a great resource that it'll give you maps. It'll give you where the resupply points are, campgrounds, so help you with logistics. They do a lot of newsletters telling you what's going on up and down the trail. As I mentioned earlier, in the spring they put together a couple of webinars that they'll talk about the various aspects of the trail, because it is, like I said, it's a little bit more complex with planning some of the logistics. Permitting is a bit more complex. Resupply, because there aren't a lot of places along the trail to resupply, so you have to kind of think through that a little bit more. But that's probably would be the great best place to start. And then there's the Great Divide Trail Hikers on Facebook has a group, so there's also a community there. And then, there's, like I said, I've shown this a couple times. That book, Dustin Link's books is fantastic. I also have an ebook version of it, so I keep it on my phone. So when you're hiking on the trail, you can pull up, hey, what am I going to expect to see, and what am I going to encounter for the next day on the trail? And then Far Out also has a map set. I was going to ask if it was on Far Out, so it is on Far Out. Yep. Okay. Excellent. Well, listen, Kelly, I never do good on time. So I'm already looking 47 minutes. Time flies when you're having fun, but I'm telling you guys, I'm just really fueled up by the listeners of this show. I'm fueled up, when people email me and correspond, and Kelly, you and I have been corresponding. And thank you again for, yesterday, I know you were probably all day anticipating coming on the show, and then I call and go, I'm not going to be able to. And then you came right back on 24 hours later. I really appreciate that. So I'm going to have to say, you're coming back. So I'm going to be doing my Appalachian Trail series here over the next several weeks, and then taking a break over the summer so I can get out and do some hiking myself. And then in the fall, I definitely want you to come back on the show. So there's your invitation, Kelly. I hope you accept. Oh, I'd love to. I know I've just been actually in prepping for this. I went back and listened to the last show that we put together, and it kind of got me thinking about on my website, Two Guys in the Woods, that I've been putting a lot of trail reports and kind of, hey, this is what I've done and where I went and what I saw. But one of the things I had mentioned to you when we were chatting last time was it was also a place to kind of share knowledge and share skills. So it's something I've started doing over the past week and a bit. Is what I should actually be posting also some kind of trail skills and some learning articles as well. So I've started going back to do a little bit of that, and be happy to come back in the fall and either share some of my adventures over the summer, or talk a little bit about some of the other aspects around risk planning and risk mitigation, which is some of the stuff I know. Trail safety. And we had talked about that before too, that we should have a show about that. So yes, let's do. See, we just keep playing in the next one. And if you're doing so what is your website? It's twoguysinthewoods.com? Yep. Okay. And I will make sure that is in the description. I'll make sure it's in the audio version show notes. And have you added your trip reports from this past summer? Yeah. So I've put up my trip reports, and then I've started to put a few kind of skill articles together.
That'll be, I think I've posted about 2 this week, and I've got a few more that I'll be putting together over the next couple of weeks as well.
Excellent. So we'll add that as a resource as well. And I meant to bring this up earlier, but Boots on the Trail says he's not concerned about the time. So apparently we could just keep going. So appreciate that, Boots. But I wanted to ask you, because you got the new Thermarest and I see it standing there. It's supposed to be like less crinkly, or can you reach it and show us?
Yeah. This is one of the new NXTs. So Thermarest just redid their Neo Air and their Xtherm line. So I've had an Xtherm sleeping pad for probably a good 10 years. They say this one is supposed to be, it's a little bit thicker, so it goes from 2.5 inches to 3 inches thicker. So that sounds good to me. And it's supposed to reduce the crinkliness that a lot of people have experienced with the Thermarest inflatable sleeping pads. With my old Xtherm, I don't know if I just used it so much that I just wore the crinkles away. So it never seemed to bother me. But these new ones are also lighter, so anything that'll reduce the weight will definitely help. Plus, it's kind of my stand-in. I ordered one of the new Durston X-Mid 1 Pro tents, so I'm just waiting on mine to show up. So this is kind of this will probably be about the same size and same weight. So
that is crazy.
Kind of holding the holding space for my 1P Pro for when it arrives.
So the 1P Pro, you're in Canada, so you should get yours like right away, right? Like,
yeah, I ordered mine with the ground sheet. I think I mentioned, so that's delayed it a little bit.
Here you go.
So, yeah, I'm kind of vicariously looking at people on Facebook who've received theirs and but. Yeah, but I was still able to get out camping last weekend with my regular X-Mid and had a great time. I got a foot of snow that night, but it wasn't that cold. So it was.
Well, listen, the Durston
any
community.
In the outdoors.
You guys are great on the Facebook page, the Durston Gearheads. I'm pretty sure that's how we connected the first time when my co-host Austin was all with me and we had Dan on the show. I had never heard of Durston, the Durston tent, the Gearheads. I was like, I am oblivious, but now I'm like, wait a minute. I had a Durston before all this stuff started. So
it's a great community. Everyone gets to, kind of joke. It's not a cult, but
wait. Austin says that too. It's not a cult.
Yeah. It's the people are great. Everyone's friendly, and it's great product, and Dan and his wife and their new daughter, kind of hop in from time. Well, maybe not the daughter, but they hop in to provide support to the community. So.
Yeah, they do. He's very active in there. And I'm going to throw this out there because I need your help. I just realized I forgot I need your help. I'm trying to get John to come on the show, who manages the Gearheads. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd definitally be
I've reached out to him and I'm like, come on, John. He's like, oh, I don't know. And I'm like, okay, so I'm putting it out there to the airwaves. Maybe we could have you guys on both in the fall or something like that. We do something fun.
Sure. Yeah. I'd be happy to give him a nudge.
Excellent. And Justin says he's in love with his X-Mid Pro. And I also saw something on here from Justin. He says he used the Xtherm on his recent backpacking trip. It got pretty quiet after about 20 days. So there you go.
Yeah, I guess you just have to kind of tough through the crinkleness, and then away you go.
Well, listen, I always said the crinkleness doesn't bother me if I'm sleeping on it, right? I'm nice and sound asleep. The crinkleness just bothers everybody else.
And if you're in a one-person tent, then there's no one else to bother.
Yeah, exactly. And if somebody else is tented too close from you, that's their problem, right? That's the way I look at it. All right, Kelly, thank you again. Don't go anywhere. Let's chat after we're done here. But you guys, thank you so much. Kelly, I cannot thank you again for allowing me to reschedule this just 24 hours later. And who knows what's going to go wrong next time, you guys, but that's the risk of going live. And I just appreciate you guys showing up reaching out to me, continuing to encourage me to keep this show going, specifically putting the spotlight on section hikers. So you guys, thanks for listening. Be safe out there and happy section hiking.
I'm wondering if you'd go wandering with me through the wilderness and woods to where the winds are blowing free, through the darkness of the night, heading toward the morning light. I wonder if you'd wander with me, and I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come, and we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river and through the woods. You're wondering if I go wandering with you, what kind of trouble we'll get ourselves into. Would it be wrong to tag along with a band of vagabonds? You wonder if I'd wander with you. So I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come, and we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river. I'm wondering if you'd come wandering my way, if you ever get lost or if the trail leads you astray. The music of the pack can always bring you back. I wonder, can we wander away? And I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come, and we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river and through the
woods. Wells Fargo presents one of the surest ways to grow your money. A Wells Fargo CD account, where you can earn a 5.00% annual percentage yield on an 11-month term with a minimum opening deposit of $5,000. Visit a Wells Fargo branch or wellsfargo.com/CD rates to open a CD account and start growing your savings with us.
Wells Fargo Bank, N.A., member FDIC.